Greetings and salutations, friends, of both the Archcast and the Arch channel, as we are trying a little bit of an experiment today. See how the multi-stream thing functions on both channels, as I've been going a bit back and forth on how I was going to do a video on this, if I was going to do a video on this at all, and all of the usual, and I figured we'd do it a bit in the old style format, halfway between video and a stream, I'm thinking. So let's see how that works out. Right, I'm sure many of you have heard about the ongoing legal nonsense between Games Workshop and I think 280 odd or 270 plus defendants in America right now. It's been going on for quite some time, with the initial legal paperwork having been filed, I think, the week before this, quite early. And then, of course, the requests having been filed even earlier again in the state of Florida, as Games Workshop has had a very specific plan in mind with all of this, in all due likelihood, because they have hired a firm that specializes in just this sort of thing, which is this firm right here. And, okay, to return to the beginning for a second. This, of course, kicked off quite some time ago. I'm sure many of you have probably heard of it again. You might have watched Janovich's take on this as well. Janovich was on the Archcast a few weeks ago to talk about this very exact thing, in fact. Or alternatively, if I actually show... There you go. Technical difficulties notwithstanding. There we are. If I actually show things on screen, it makes all of this so much easier to follow. But yes, Janovich has been following this for quite some time. He came to talk to us about it on the Archcast, as this is but the last in a long line of Games Workshop legal actions against sellers, against content creators, against basically anybody and everyone who has Warhammer anywhere in their title or their seller's market, or, well, anything whatsoever these days. They have hired the Brickle IP group to push this forward, and at first I figured, like, okay, well, we should make a video about it, like, just discuss the topic. But at the same time, what can I really say in a video format beyond Games Workshop is suing somebody? Games Workshop is suing a lot of people. A lot of the lawsuits appear to be outright predatory. They are taking advantage of a American legal system that is, well, ass backwards, to say it mildly. And yeah, GW are being terrible people. Okay. I feel like this is a song and dance we've gone over before, as Then I feel like, okay, maybe we just turn this around. Instead of talking about even the lawsuit, we simply go, all right, yeah, who didn't see this coming? And if you didn't see this coming, have you been living under a rock for the last 8 odd years or so? Because the writing has been on the wall for a very long time. I've been talking about it myself for about 8 years or so. And so I'm kind of leaning in the direction of, yeah, this was going to happen. If you didn't think it was going to happen, and if you didn't react as if it was going to happen, well, you're screwed, I guess. But of course, even people who didn't have anything to do with it were also struck down in this latest round here, as I believe we even had examples of a BattleTech channel, of all things, also being hit by this massive group lawsuit. So I guess even then, you can't do anything. See, this is why I put the title up on this video here, because the end, I think that's a better way to approach this. The end of independent Warhammer content is over, and I mean that in the most blanket statement of ways. There is still going to be some content, either people who fly underneath the radar because Games Workshop hasn't noticed them, or because Games Workshop frankly doesn't care what they're doing, people who haven't antagonized them. As GW aren't idiotic enough to lash out against people who have never done anything to them. They still have a base understanding of the benefits of positive PR. Animator cracked on down notwithstanding, but that too was because they themselves figured that, okay, well, we're launching Warhammer Plus, we want a monopoly on this, therefore we're going to give the animators the option to either bend the knee and sign the contract, or we will drive them out of business. Simple enough. Again, GW aren't evil, they're just incredibly malicious. Then there will be the group who GW don't have anything on, or they view as too prickly to go after, because it just simply wouldn't be worth it. They've got other ways to go after people. They can contact other corporations, they can ban other companies from working with them, they can minimalize them as much as possible within the general Warhammer and online space. Hi. That's me. And then there's the third group of people, which are the ones who have signed contracts with Games Workshop, which, make no mistake, the majority of established, lore channels and Warhammer channels in general, 40k, that do model reviews, news, etc., that covers the hobby, virtually all of them are already under contract with Games Workshop. We've been hearing rumors about that for, like 3-4 years now, ever since the animator crackdown. I've heard from at least 4 different people who claim to be associated closely with GW that, obviously there are contracts. GW allows these people to be within the sphere and to gain influence within the sphere, so long as they don't touch upon anything too controversial, so long as they keep themselves in check. And obviously the creators themselves, they're not going to be telling you this because it's going to obviously mean that they're, in essence, bought and paid for. But again, the majority of them are. As this then, of course, goes to see as well what kind of content Games Workshop wants. As, again, referring back to the title of the video. The lawsuit itself, let's talk a little bit about the lawsuit. I don't want to talk about the lawsuit massively so, because there's a lot of details there, and frankly, a lot of it's honestly almost irrelevant at this point. It's more lawfare on the behalf of GW. Can we stop it? No. Can we do anything to interfere with it? No. Can we make GW's products less popular right now? No. And we will get back to that as well, as we are in a interesting state of being when it comes to trying to hold GW accountable for their various assholish actions. So, this is what do they call it? Yes, a Schedule A defendants lawsuit. So this is something that is not unique to Florida, but it's sort of, not many people use this, as the reason why Games Workshop has brought this suit in Florida, like they brought Chapter House to the court in, I think, Illinois years and years ago, is simply because America is more permissive of lawsuits from corporations. This is one of the countless weaknesses of the modern-day judicial system, that corporations can simply shop around until they find a court or a legislative system that will give them the maximum amount of benefits and their opposition the minimum amount of benefits. And today, that's Florida. Because you see, what this Schedule A defendant scheme, or appropriately shortened as SAD, does is it allows a corporation to launch a package of lawsuits simultaneously. This is why they've hired the Brickle Group to get all of this together. In all due likelihood, the Brickle Group too has basically then combed the internet, Etsy, Amazon, resellers, blah, 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 just looking for the keyword Warhammer, in essence, as they've sued everything from genuine copyright infringement. Some of the examples that have been brought up are genuine, like people using the current day 40k logo, for example, to sell things. Yeah, no, that is absolutely copyright infringement and trademark abuse. And all the way up to people selling I shit you not, magnets. Why? Supposedly because down in the description of what the magnets can be used for, it can be used for 32 millimeter Warhammer bases. So magnets to like lock units to bases, basically. So even that has been struck. And again, this is the perfect example of how broad the net has been thrown, right? So No Guts, No Galaxy was sued for Warhammer, the BattleTech mech Warhammer, because it's called Warhammer. That's literally it. That is the entire reason why he was caught up in the lawsuit, along with another like 270 plus people. Now, what SAD does then, first, it allows you to sue a bunch of people instead of needing to file individual lawsuits, which is what you would need to do in a normal legal system. And furthermore, it allows the courts and the corporations to seize your assets before court proceedings continue. So let's say that you've got a shopfront, a storefront, for example, that sells something that Games Workshop has decided is infringing upon their copyright, all right? They can then go to the court of Florida and then get a preliminary ruling, not even a ruling, but just like, okay, judge, these are the 280 cases, these are the people we want to take down. He goes, okay, you can proceed, and then the seller's account is frozen. His storefront is frozen, and the bank account associated with it, like anything like a account on Amazon, Etsy, etc., is also frozen. And this is, again, before any actual legal proceedings begin. So if you are targeted with this, you can't argue that you can't do this. It has already happened. This obviously means that the defendant will have very limited resources with which to defend himself. Because, well, his money is going to be seized, his products and his shopfront is going to be seized. It also means that he has no opportunity to fix the situation. He can't go like, oh shit, I wasn't aware this was a copyright infringement, I'll take it down. There's no opportunity to do that. What you can instead do is go to GW, and they've been asking, reports claim from $2,000 to $10,000 to settle the case out of court. So at that point, it's basically an extortion scheme. Pay GW X amount of money, and they'll go away. What makes this even more ridiculous is that in Florida, it is legal to serve somebody with legal papers via email. So this is the other thing, right? If you are looking for to catch people who are in China, for example, or catch people who are in Africa, Mongolia, Argentina, God knows right where, this is a way where you can blanket all of them without actually needing to find them and sue them in the natural, normal fashion. Furthermore, if the defendant then doesn't show up to a court date in Florida, which means you, of course, have to travel to Florida, well, you forfeit the case, and Games Workshop then gets to claim damages from you. So, to put it very quickly and very bluntly, the entirety of this legal system in Florida is designed to give the corporation every single advantage, even to the point where they can actually dismiss lawsuits voluntarily as well. So, in the case of No Guts, No Galaxy, for example, he had originally ignored the email summons to court because, well, it seemed like a fucking scam email. Of course it did. I mean, you're sitting there one day as a BattleTech channel, and an email dumps down into your email going like, from the Florida court system, you're being sued for infringement on the Warhammer IP. You're gonna shake your fucking head like this is obviously a scam email. Somebody's trying to phishing link my ass. And that was exactly what had happened. Naturally so. Until they'd been made aware that this was actually a genuine legal proceeding somehow. They had to retain the services of a lawyer, paying out of pocket, of course, and go to Games Workshop, contact them officially, and go like, you're retarded. And GW then finally looking at the lawsuit, because bear in mind, if they hadn't responded, if No Guts, No Galaxy hadn't responded to this, then he wouldn't have showed up in court, and Florida would have just gone like, bonk, guilty, damages to GW. So obviously, Games Workshop had every reason to simply continue on and pretend that nothing was wrong. Once they were actually contacted, however, they looked at the case and went, yeah, this is obviously bullshit, and indeed, if we bring this to court, it will weaken our position. In fact, they will be, well, obviously guilty of a spurious lawsuit at that point, as this bears no resemblance to reality whatsoever. And so, what GW does is, okay, well, this is going to hurt us. We can't win this, and in fact, it is going to weaken the rest of our cases. So we've decided to unilaterally dismiss you from this lawsuit, which is a power they have. They can just throw out the lawsuit at any point, and that's it. You've basically got no legal recourse thereafter. It's a bit unclear if GW then loses the bond, because they do have to put up a bond per defendant of about $10,000, but I'm presuming that gets returned to them. I can't say that for certain, but yeah, it's a terrible system. It is a fucking awful system. And again, that is exactly the reason why GW is doing this in Florida, because it gives them every single power in the universe and allows the defendant practically nothing. That's why, simple as. So, now that we've kind of talked about the lawsuit itself, which is exactly as predatory as you think, although I will again reiterate that there are elements of it that are legitimate as well. Like there are lawsuits within these 270 odd defendants that are legitimate, and there are many more that are scales of grey. Indeed, you might remember the Chapter House lawsuit from 2010. There we go. In this lawsuit, it was determined that GW could not claim copyright or our trademark IP over something that they didn't actually produce. I believe the example was mycetic spores, where Chapter House was Chapter House. Why do I want to pronounce it Chapter House? I don't even know. Where Chapter House was producing a model for a mycetic spore. GW went, okay, well, this is copyright infringement, and the court found, like, no, you don't actually produce this model. You have just made up a name, and then, like, we own this. No, you can't do that. You can't. Just like with pauldrons. And Games Workshop is now claiming the right over things like cosplay gear, for example. There was one example brought up where they were copyright claiming a Space Marine helmet, which on the one hand, yeah, no, obviously that is a Space Marine helmet. On the other, Games Workshop doesn't actually make that. They don't produce that kind of item, and so that's a far more grey area again. Not to mention as well, this in no way damages Games Workshop. It doesn't cut into them, it doesn't harm their IP, it doesn't cost them any money, it doesn't compete with any official products, etc., etc., etc. But some of them, again, were absolutely, like, proper, like Chinese resellers, basically, who just, like, recast models and miniatures and literally call them 40k miniatures, or who use Games Workshop official logo to sell shit, that kind of stuff, absolutely. But I want to kind of move on to the broader implications of this instead of just simply reiterating that, yeah, GW is a predatory company, because again, if there's someone out there that hasn't gotten that message at this point, I don't know what to say. I don't. I have no idea what to add to that particular conversation. So, what Games Workshop is doing right now is, in essence, they've been in the process of replacing their fandom for the last, I'd say, 3-4 years or so. Basically, ever since the Warhammer is for everyone statement, for example. Let's see. And this, of course, is in large parts related to the Amazon deal as well. So, Games Workshop has, for the longest time, been attempting to become a mainstream entity. They've been chomping at the bits to go mainstream for like a decade plus. They have now gone mainstream. It has happened. The entities in Hollywood, big corporations, are basically looking at GW and Warhammer 40k as the next Star Wars, in that it will be a new cultural phenomenon. And they're probably right. Well, dependent upon a degree on how well Amazon does with the 40k TV shows, but 40k is, make no mistake, on the way to becoming the next like major mainstream entity. GW knows this, Amazon knows this, the various corporations all know this. And so GW now believes, rightfully so incidentally, that they have a new audience waiting for them, and they do. The majority of new customers coming to 40k these days, particularly after the COVID pandemic, for example, aren't the old guard. They're not grognards. The Amazon television show will not first and foremost, I have a thing in my goddamn eye, be aimed towards old fans. It's going to have nods here and there, cameos. The addition of Henry Cavill is absolutely going to be a part of that, definitely. But it's going to mainly be intended towards new people, which is why they're going to do Space Marines instead of anything interesting like Imperial Guard or Cyphers Kane or anything like that. They're going to do Space Marines because that's the moneymaker. That's the sales pitch, the fanboy thing, basically. This means that they don't need their old miniature fans anymore. They're going to move on to being a multimedia entity now. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if they would start closing stores en masse, or in essence turning them into cafes or experience houses within the next decade or so, because they're not going to need to, especially when they get more and more into bed with Amazon, of course. The brick and mortar stores were there to build a community, to build up customers, to build up loyal fans, and to build up a sense of unity around all of this. They don't need that anymore, and so they're going to get rid of it. On the bright side, if you really like the Warhammer Cafe, there'll be a lot more of that. I can near guarantee you're going to be seeing a Warhammer 40k cosplay cafe within your lifetime. Now, this means that they don't give a shit about upsetting the current fan base. They literally don't care. We can't harm them right now. And I know that's a bit of a black-pilled thing to say, but it's true. Their stock prices are exploding. Everybody's looking with their deals to Amazon. They're looking at the upcoming TV show, jobs with Henry Cavill, etc. They don't care at this point. Even if they do shit like the Adeptus Custodes, which piss off their own fan base. Even if if this were to send sales plummeting, it doesn't matter. GW stock prices will still rise. There's nothing that can really be done about that. Now, that is not to say that all hope is lost by any extent of the imagination either. It simply means that this phase of the war is just done with. Grassroots rebellion against GW from the old guard, which was relatively effective there for a while, isn't gonna move the needle right now. We know, for example, that Warhammer Plus was doing quite poorly, and to the best of my knowledge, still has not actually been able to produce a profit, in large part because of all of the money they invested into it, the talent, the studios, the equipment, etc., and they've generally speaking been scaling that back in order to focus on the bigger quality moneymakers and the animations. This too will obviously dovetail into Amazon and things like the secret level as well, being in essence marketing schemes rather than how do I put it? It's more 80s cartoons intended to sell something rather than being an entertaining property in and of itself. However, this will also inevitably lead to the soul of the entity being lost. This also, incidentally, means that they will probably be striking out against various forms of fan content, too. GW is going to become even more litigious. They are going to make sure that nobody will sell anything that in any way could even be loosely connected to 40K. So there was an example of a paint pot holder, which was designed to hold Citadel paint pots. That got struck in the copyright claims and the trademark IPs of the current wave. Basically, anything that is made by fans or anything, GW will not like that. And they will either try to strike you outright, they will try to get you to sign a contract, which they've already managed to do, in my opinion, with the majority of the established creators right now, or they will find some other way to strike at you, to minimize you. That could be through cooperations with Amazon or Etsy to simply remove store listings, which they've already done with Amazon's help, to limit your ability to grow on social medias by having contact with the corporation that run those, to limit your ability to have things like sponsors or interactions with other companies, which they also, of course, have a long history of. And eventually, as the useful idiots also begin losing their relevance, they'll probably move away from those too, as they gain access to bigger and better useful idiots, in essence. As this begins to happen, GW, which has already in essence lost sight of what Warhammer 40k is, will begin to grow less and less interesting. They will become more and more banal, more and more normie oriented. And we've already got that. I mean, we've already lost so much of the Space Marine aesthetic of knights in space to the Primaris wave, for example. We've already seen the generic fantasification of the old world with Age of Sigmar. This has already begun to happen, and we've already been seeing it for many, many years. But again, the new audience doesn't know any of this. To the new audience, Age of Sigmar has always been Age of Sigmar. Primaris Marines have always been Primaris Marines. And so to them, this is still going to be absolute gravy. And if a bunch of us old guys go, actually, no, it used to be much better, it's not really going to affect them, if you catch my drift. This is a problem you already see in movies and gaming and other forms of entertainment as well, of course. But we will then enter into the Disney effect era, where Disney also, of course, became mainstream. It grew into a global brand, as GW is now about to do, on the back of quality content. Then, as the corporation forgot how to actually make that quality content, the content, of course, suffered. In turn, as they were unable to produce the content that made them famous, people began abandoning them. To the point where today, the only thing that is really profitable for Disney is, in essence, their theme parks and cruises, in essence, living off nostalgia. Games Workshop is going to arrive at that same point, but they're going to be speedrunning this, as I'd wager within 10, 20 years, we're probably going to reach that point. And hey, people like me who do cultural commentary will feast off the carcass for a long time to come. Although, I will also say, GW has picked a fortuitous moment to do this, as we are seeing a general decline in wokeism across the world. The DEI is getting less and less popular. Many companies are ditching it, not Amazon, mind you, and so they might actually be able to rediscover that spirit, in which case we might actually be getting more good 40k content. I'd be surprised if that happened, but it is a theoretical possibility. It will not, however, be on the back of, like, normal people. They're essentially going to be as litigious as Disney in the end, where Disney will basically strike out against anything and everything created by the fans in the effort of creating a walled garden for themselves, because that is obviously the best way to earn money. You don't want to do things like in the good old days, where the various IPs and properties could branch over and touch upon one another, like how Warhammer had literally a Lord of the Rings model in it, for example, and tribute characters. Now, it is far more profitable to go like, no, this is my segment of interest. Only I get to have this. Nobody else gets to touch it. Not other companies, not fans, etc. And I think that's largely unavoidable in essence, and especially as GW now has a period of a couple of years where the normies aren't really watching to up their legal warfare until they've basically eradicated anything and everything that might exploit their rise to fame and prominence. Right. Let me take a brief break also to just, I'm going to go over a couple of these super chats on the Archcast channel, see if they bring up anything relevant to it too. Someone says, what's the Craig Arch? How are we today? Where is a card lad today? Sargon is not here today, as you can probably tell, as Sargon is busy on this fine evening, and will be for the next couple of weeks as well. Well, not next the next week too, I think, and then we will be back to Stamford Bridge with Arch and Sargon as per usual. It's because Sargon can't manage time. He's British. They can't. It literally doesn't work that way. Alex Alexandru, you discovered the power to save 40k and what to use it for? Dick Grill Deathclaw. No, this money goes to GW Hostile Corporate Takeover Fund. Only 3 billion GBP to go. Yeah. That's, it's gonna be a long shot, I'm afraid. Dogs and Doppelganger, Alpha Booster should have fought them. Right, well, that's one of those controversial takes where I do actually agree. He should have. The thing is, I don't think he would have been targeted. I think Alpha Booster would have become one of the people who were given a contract, in essence, and gone like, okay, you work for us now. I believe that would have happened, because he was obviously creating parody content, nor was Games Workshop, as far as I'm aware, in any way targeting them either, but they obviously had the best shot. And to be fair, I too should have just refused when they argued that they were going to change the name from Arch Warhammer to just Arch, trademarking the word Warhammer, because that would have been a 50-50 lawsuit at best, especially as they probably would have sued me in like the EU or something ridiculous like that. But that, of course, is one of the reasons why they can, in essence, claim that they just own Warhammer, which is in and of itself retarded. Robleg623, where does this leave you, Arch? We'll stand by you 100%. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. But you are surely on their shit list. He who shall not be named after all that. I've already went through your channel being nuked once. I don't want to see it again. Oh, well, there's the thing. Again, there's going to be 3 types of creators here. There's those who are going to be too small, or, culturally irrelevant for Games Workshop to care about, as they're not going to, waste lawyers on going after just anybody most of the time, unless they can do it in a sad suit, where they bring in like 200 people at the time. Then there's the people who have signed contracts, and I feel pretty confident that I'm not going to be taken for one of those. And the second group, who is already on the shit list. Like, Games Workshop already has targeted me over the years. They've already blacklisted me. They've already done countless cases of torturous interference to make other companies stop working with me. They would probably love to try and take me down if they could, but one, I'm not a very easy target, as I'm creating Warhammer lore, which is obviously fair use fan content. And 2, I do have a fair bit more cultural relevance, especially these days, than most content creators. So it would be a news story at that point. And whereas when they went after me the first time, well, I erroneously looked to the Warhammer community at large to defend me. Not a single one of them did, because, well, 1, they weren't people you could rely on, and 2, most of them were probably already arguing to get those contracts rather than creating waves or standing up in any way. So that was silly. Now I'm in a little bit of a different position with a political content channel, of course, and a bit more, again, cultural relevance. So I would probably be the last on the list, and honestly at this point I do Warhammer 40k content as a hobby more so than anything else, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. River Norse, not on topic, but 40k at least, since Terra has a traitor gene seed in stock, do they also have it of the Lost Legions? Have it been used? Cursed Founding? Probably yes. They definitely do have it. I'd be surprised if they didn't, because Gene Seed is unbelievably valuable, of course, and so I would not imagine that the High Lords would just purge Gene Seed for no reason. And we have both cursed foundings, where there are suggestions of traitor Gene Seed being used, and there has also been heavily hinted that the Warp Squirrel Belisarius Call has hiccups also used Lost Legion Gene Seed, so probably. Also, I should take the ones on the Arch channel too before they disappear. Killer Sloth, sadly, they'll ignore things that could be good DI like Lotara Saren, and instead they'll make a Rei Su character instead to give to the normies. Oh yes, absolutely. Like, Lotara Saren will not be used. And if she will be used, her story will be changed. Because Lotara Saren is, of course, a tragic story character. She is a woman who, well, fell to darkness and was unable to stand up to it. Somebody who knew what was happening, but who did not have either the moral courage, or more probably, she had too strong of ties to the Legion to halt its decline, even if she was indeed aware of it, being turned into a ghost aboard the Vengeful Spirit. Now, again, that depends on how much, progressivism we might see in future Warhammer Entertainment, which, taking into consideration that they've got Cavill on board and that they're launching it fairly late, it's not guaranteed that the Amazon TV show will be woke. In fact, I dearly hope it won't. But we'll wait and see. Skullthrone888. So what's your future then? I've been watching you since you've covered Warhammer Total War's release. Don't want to lose your content. Well, as I just said, I don't think I'm in any immediate danger. Oh, and speaking of Amazon as well, Amazon too has had, like, a weird, not pivot, but drift, more like, in the direction of the opposite political spectrum, with, in particular, Clarkson's farm, for example. Clarkson is an avowed anti-progressive, and his show has earned them so much money. It's like one of their most popular entertainment entities right now, even as the Rings of Power is flopping so hard that it's difficult to quantify. Even Amazon is beginning to see the writing on the wall, and by the time the 40K TV show is even written, which is going to be in another year, much less so produced in another 2 or 3, well, who knows? Zanaxon Doppelganger, we could crowdfund legal defenses. Yes, to an extent, but that, again, requires... that does require them to target somebody who could do it as well. And there's the complicated process too. Again, it's one of the reasons why they probably would consider me a spikier target, but a channel of like 30,000 subscribers, or a smaller channel, is probably not going to have the opportunity to do so. An individual reseller is probably not going to have the opportunity to do so. And in the case of a SAD lawsuit, most of the people targeted won't have the resources or the reach to do so, and they won't even know that they are being targeted until their bank account is already frozen and their reseller accounts are already frozen. Now, I'm relatively sure they probably couldn't do this with online stuff, but in theory, you could even have a situation where social media channels are viewed as vectors of sales and therefore legal to be seized by SAD lawsuits, in which case, even if they were to target a channel that might have the ability to reach people, they could shut down the channel itself and deny the individual the access to that reach. So, who knows? Again, this is a even bigger problem than Games Workshop. This is our current day legal system not understanding how the internet or any kind of justice system works. Slox and Doppelganger. If I was hit by this mistake, I would pick up a Furium. That doesn't mean anything, of course, no. Andrei Dektarov moved from 40K to Legion, and MSBG never came back. Well, that is, of course, one of the things as well. I know Yanovich is already basically on board of the idea with I'm just going to leave this behind. It's not worth it. There's no future here. I'm not going to have any opportunity to do anything with it. And that is, in all due likelihood, the best course of action for most people. Like, unless you are under contract from GW or you are a persona non grata to the point where you are unlikely to be targeted in the immediate future, as in like 10 years or so, simply moving on is your best option. Which, in the case of somebody who does animations, well, you would have to do animation of something completely different, which means you'll have a far smaller, immediately installed audience, which is no fun, of course. And in the case of people like myself, well, we are going to move on to making our own settings, which is exactly what I am doing. I and Sargon are currently working on our own science fiction setting, and we're also working on a fantasy setting as well, where we've gotten quite some way about it. I've been talking about it on the Patreon only streams for quite some time now, but this seems as good a time as any to. Oh, there you go. To talk a little bit about this, because this is your best option. Once everything starts going south, you're going to have to find something else to do. Now, creating your own stuff is not going to be for everybody by any stretch of the imagination. This shit is expensive. It is ridiculously time-consuming. I think Ion Sargon have been doing this for about 2 years now. Just producing the concept art, making the world itself, crafting the lore, figuring out what it looks like, figuring out what we want to focus on, what the feel of the world is going to be, what the intent of the world is going to be, how we're going to, the fundaments. For example, we've decided to focus our world near exclusively on philosophy, in essence. That is not to say that it will be a world in which people will be waging war on one another using philosophy, of course. They'll be using guns, like everybody else. However, each of the factions will have a fundament in philosophy. The UEC will have their own way of viewing the world, which we construct at the very beginning, which will be fundamentally different from the Ashari or the Gar. Each one of these will have, and this allows us to build the entire world from the ground up, to the point where a Gar city will look drastically different from an Ashari city, not because they like different things in purely aesthetical terms, but because they think differently. They believe different things. They view the world through radically different lenses. And this then allows us to fill out all of the blanks. We don't have to think about all of the plot holes, like, oh, what kind of weapons would the Gar use? Because we've already thought about that. We have already built up the basis of their ideology, their worldview, and from that you can, in essence, extrapolate how they build, how they breed, how they fight, how they view the world, what their diplomacy looks like, what their art looks like, what their buildings, their civilization. All of this can be extrapolated from that basis. And it also allows us to avoid the Trench Crusade problem, where you create a setting that is, and I'm working on a video for this, by the way, which will be coming out reasonably soon, I'm hoping, where you create a setting that is almost deliberately vague, to the point where you are relying more, in fact, on audience headcanon to determine what your setting is, rather than what you yourself are creating. And that is absolutely what Trench Crusade does, and it annoys me, because it's so fucking lazy. Hey, literally, in Trench Crusade, you have like, oh, this is a demon. It looks like a bug. It spreads plague. How do you know that? Because we painted the background green. Oh, and by the way, in case that wasn't enough of a hint, it's a demon of Beelzebub, the Lord of Flies. I feel like I'm being smacked over the head with it at that point, but it is actually a good sales method, because when you base everything in things that everybody already knows, it creates a wonderful source of speculation because you will have so many ready-made presuppositions about the world that you yourself will craft your own preferred headcanon to make you interested in the setting. Again, it pisses me off because I hate that form of creativity because it's not creativity at all. It's and the way that they basically, they didn't even basically, they actually literally did say that there is no canon in their universe, that anyone's theories are as valid as the creators. I'm wandering off topic. Suffice to say, I could rant about that for a while, and I intend to, but to get back on point again. Angelos 32. Conflict 47 could be a good setting to cover, since Warlord Games plan to expand the setting. Also, what do you think about Owlcat's Dark Heresy reveal? I've been looking a bit into Conflict 47, yes, and I quite like it. It looks cool. I do need to look into that more. I think it would be funny. And I did see Owlcat, and I also saw Dawn of War remaster. So in the midst of all of this doom and gloom, this is a good thing. I'm happy about this. I'm glad. I'm not. Part of me wants to complain about how Relic is just doing remasters now. How the mighty have fallen, but fuck it. It's Dawn of War, but compatible with modern systems, new servers for multiplayer, upgraded graphics. Yeah, no, I'm sick of being sad. I just want my Dawn of War. Dawn of War 3 put me in a position where I will take the scraps. It's good. Thank you. Please remaster Dawn of War 2 next. Don't try to make anything new, Relic. We both know you can't. Just give me back my childhood. Which is a somewhat sad thing to admit, but here we are. And that intro animation still holds up to this fucking day. Oh. Rebel Umbreon for $20. Thank you very much, sir. I've been getting into Diesel Punk. Empire's War, I'm taking any chance I have to promote it. All their lore is free on their World Anvil page, and think we should start looking at alternative hobbies. Oh, absolutely. Empire at War, eh? I'll put it in my Google. Have a look at it later on. Thank you. And I do agree, but the reality of the situation is that once you hit mainstream company levels, there really isn't a whole lot of competition. Like we can look for alternative hobbies to enjoy for ourselves, and we should. But it's not going to weaken GW. So it is for your own entertainment purposes, in essence, and that is a good thing. And 94 Razors, screw GW. I don't know what drugs they're on, but they need to stop attacking the fan base. Sure, go after the ones infringing on trademark, but leave the fan creators alone. Yep. Well, absolutely. That is the standpoint everyone wants GW to have, but no, it's GW. Skiki, this is a Doom retake, except that it's dead. It has been dead for a while and move on. If they fail, good. If they don't, well, I don't care either. Yeah, no, I'm pretty much with you there. I'm simply going to feast off the carcass. That's as as ghoulish as it sounds, that is literally my intended strategy at this point. Games Workshop is not the company I once loved. They're not creating what I once loved. I'm going to take pieces out of it. I'm going to hope they burn themselves to the ground, and I am going to launch a objectively superior product. And then we will slowly begin to build up a better fan base with better stuff, and I can promise you this, at least. A vastly superior attitude to the fans. We're already planning a system where if anybody wants to make stuff for our setting, if they want to make books or fan novels or even models and miniatures, then obviously we will need a veto right to go like, okay, this doesn't fit with our setting, etc. But if somebody makes something that we approve of that fits within our world, we are planning on a system to do revenue share with them and basically go, okay, yeah, no, this is really cool. We will officially allow you to use our brand. You can now be an official part of it. And obviously, we will give you a portion of the proceedings and so on. Because the fans are supposed to be brought up, not crushed down. Controversial take in this day and age, I know. Next to go on the first, the Pope of Tea has been a member for 25 months. Thank you very much, sir. Don't forget to drink your tea. Have you seen what Yanovich uploaded and talked about GW's renewed offensive against creators, GW adjacent producers? I don't know if I've seen if he's made anything recent, but I have been keeping an eye on what Yanovich has been doing, yes. Andrew P. Normies mainstream need characters to survive the villains of the week. True Grimdark makes them uncomfortable because of the crush. Oh yeah, no, well that's the other thing too. Warhammer 40k is not going to be Grimdark. It's not. It is not going to be Grimdark. It is going to become Hope Punk. That is what Games Workshop is going to make it. You are going to have heroes. You are going to have characters that cannot die, that cannot even be inconvenienced in any real way. You're going to have Marvel superheroes. That's what you're going to get. That is absolutely what you're going to get. Once they happen, a character that they like, he's going to be eternal. And, well, again, it means that we won't have 40k, but we will have Marvel. More of it, so yay. Samuel Fraser. Arch, what do you think about Grey Knight and specifically Kaldor Drago? I like him as a meme. But that's kind of a meme. He's meme material. I like the meme of Kaldor Drago. He is funny. And the Grey Knights, too, are sort of funny. I'd prefer it if they didn't have a tabletop faction because, I mean, they're just another Space Marine faction. Like, the Custodians should never have had a faction, in my opinion, but yeah. Timothy LaRue, Arch, have you heard that there's an OnlyFan girl that does 40k lore? No, I have not heard there's an OnlyFan girls that does OnlyFan lore. Oh, well, no, that's the other way around. I have not heard that there's an OnlyFans girl that does 40k lore. I haven't heard about that. But that is cool, if nothing else, and another wonderful example of how mainstream 40k has become. Zalox and Doppelganger, why not sue GW for torture's interference? I have thought about it, but I mean, it was too many years ago at this point, and I doubt I'd be able to get Wargaming on board with that somehow. Snudenhoff, will there be a felonid Warhammer cafe? Snark aside, been watching you since 2016. Hope you are here to stay. Oh, I certainly intend to. And thank you very much. Thank you. Master Huntsman for 20. Our hobbies should never have entered into the mainstream. They just ruin everything they touch. Yep. Well, that is the sad reality of having a good hobby, that it will eventually become popular and then it'll be dead. What can I say? Angelos 32. Also, I think Space Marine 2 is what made 40k truly mainstream. No amount of gatekeeping could prevent it at that point. Possibly. I mean, I wouldn't attribute it entirely to Space Marine 2. If anything, Space Marine 2 was a symptom of the mainstream that it was already underway, and it was a lot of normies' first exposure to Space Marine as well, which obviously resulted in massive sales, and they're right now working on Space Marine 3, which is probably going to go the way of Doom the Dark Ages, in my opinion, because, the way I view it, Space Marine 1 is a better game than Space Marine 2, in my opinion. It is. More stuff in it, cooler combat, I liked it better. So then Space Marine 2 becomes the popular but less good sequel, like we saw with the Doom franchise again. And then number 3 is going to be the hyped up, oh my god, it's going to be great, and then it releases and nobody really plays it, tertiary entry into the series, like we saw with Doom the Dark Ages recently. That's going to be my 2 years in the future prediction. Rebel Umbreon, sorry, it's Marcher Empire at War, my bad. Okay, I will put that on my list. Jackie boy, have a kilo of potatoes on me. Put it in the curry fund. A kilo? I don't. Can you get a kilo of potatoes for $2? I don't think so. Not anymore. Not in this economy. Not in this economy. I think kilo of potato is probably, I don't even know. I haven't bought a kilo of potatoes. Actually, that's not entirely true. I think the potatoes do come in like half kilo bags. So, but that is again somewhat besides the point. Let's add that to the curry fund. And Jackie, Dragon of Dragons. The problem is that large companies know how the wind is changing, but don't want to admit of being the wrong for supporting left-wing ideals. Well, they're not going to admit it, obviously. That would be silly of them. They are simply going to quietly begin to change things internally. That's happening at Disney right now, where Disney is in essence in the midst of an internal civil war right now, where forces within Disney are fighting for either a return to the old style of Disney movies, which have been doing well recently, like Inside Out 2, or a tripling, quadrupling, five-tupling down on things like The Acolyte, which might have gotten a bit or more wind in its sail with the relative success of Andor. I say relative because it's been a critical success, but the view numbers still aren't quite there, apparently. Lost Bound Standing. So there is a chance that your setting would allow fan-made TTRPGs with the blessing of the creator. Yes. Now, we're probably going to end up working on a tabletop role-playing game ourselves at some point, but no, we're obviously open for, in essence, licensing deals for that, because why not? NovaFan21, what option is there for fan content if creators decide to make independent content? If Palworld is any indication, I worry about the same with Warhammer fan content. Yes, Palworld is an excellent example of, well, a company even more litigious than Games Workshop, of course, where Nintendo, well, in case you're unaware of the Palworld thing, so I can bring up an example of a company even worse than Games Workshop. Palworld was a game heavily inspired by Pokemon. Heavily inspired by Pokemon. That got sued by Nintendo. Now, Nintendo figured that they probably didn't have a great copyright lawsuit on their hands because whilst the inspiration is rather obvious, they're not directly ripping them off. So a copyright lawsuit going like, oh, this is Umbreon or this is Beelzebub. Holy hell, that would be an interesting Pokemon. Barsh? What's the name of the dumb toad thing again? Barbasor? Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur. And so instead, they did, because they don't like the company, they don't want this to be a success, and it was an enormous success. So instead, they go, okay, how can we go after them? I know. We're going to trademark and copyright mechanics in video games. And they trademarked things like throwing a ball to capture a creature, Nintendo trademark. Riding a mount, Nintendo trademark. Flying creatures, Nintendo trademark and copyright. And a lot of these they filed after Palworld was released solely to fuck with the creators. The sole and singular intent is to actively aggress upon the creators of Palworld. And they don't even necessarily care if they win. All they care about is dragging them into court and locking them down there for the next 10 to 20 years, to the point where they will be unable to launch anything of their own in order to compete with what Nintendo has. And I can guarantee you Games Workshop is listening and taking notes to this very day. And again, okay, let me get back to the lawsuit again for one thing here, right? I've seen a lot of the like the defense, like this one. GW accidentally forced No Guts, No Galaxy to get a lawyer. Or like over the years, like, GW would never do that. GW would never go after these content. GW would never do this. It's silly. And GW would never go after animators. Every time, given enough time, GW has done it. GW, they're an asshole company. Again, it's very simple. If there is any line you think GW will not cross, you simply haven't given them enough time to cross it yet. And so anyone who's thinking that they won't eventually go after just straight-up lore creators unless they have a contract with them is, well, frankly, delusional, in my honest opinion. As with Nintendo. Oh, they won't copyright flying? That's insane! And then they copyrighted flying. That's Games Workshop as well. And it's only going to be worse when they have Amazon money to use. I don't know, no question about it. They have a long and proven history of doing this, and I see absolutely no reason why we should suddenly believe that they will see the light and go like, oh, we've been monsters. Let's not do that. No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to fucking happen. Captain Blue Shadow for $20 on the Archcast. On the Arch channel. Thank you. It's a shame that GW is so adamant about bringing down the fan base. 40k is still one of the best sci-fi aesthetics out there. I like your alien designs, but to me, your human designs seem a bit too generic sci-fi to me. Oh, au contraire, mon ami. Like, listen. We have a very unique human faction. So, I agree. Okay, our basic tank, yeah, this is fairly generic. Okay, I know I'm wandering off topic again, but I need to defend my honor here. This is a fairly generic tank. That's because it's a fairly generic tank. It's just the main battle tank. That's, in essence, all it is. But the UAC have a very different focus. Most of their stuff is actually based around things like drone vehicles like this. As in the UEC, every single human being has a personal assistant AI implemented into their brain on birth. This is your companion AI. Your companion AI helps you navigate through life. It is constantly a voice in your ear and can even project itself onto your eyeballs. And the entirety of UEC society is, in essence, a mix of utopianism and nightmare, where you will live in an enormous overgrown tower. The outside is enormous jungle. The entirety of Earth is just one vast, overgrown, untamed jungle. Why? Environmental issues. We want to maintain nature, whilst humanity live in gigantic towers, where every human being lives, in essence, in a pod. Everything that you see around you is in form of an artificial construct. The grass on the floor is a light show. The massive tree at the center of the atrium plaza is holographic. The animals playing in its branches are holographic. Most of the things you see when you go into your pod at night, you can go to the beaches of Malibu, the top of Mount Everest. Everything is holographic. Your food is artificial nutrients made to look like chicken or beef or whatever. In UAC society, you will have virtually everything you could have ever wished for, but none of it will be real. This creates a rather collectivist society, which is why we have decided to model a fair bit of it on bugs. They have a very insect-esque aesthetic. Like, for example, the medic drone here. The medic drone obviously accompanies field medics into combat zones. It will then be implanted with the companion AI. So the medic will be in direct communication with the companion AI at all times to administer first aid. That's why we have these derpy little idiotic faces in them as well. The companion AI also is practically the only form of human connection that most people have these days. Take a family, for example. A family in the UEC don't live together. Once you become of age, like a year or two, you are assigned your own pod. Families live apart. A wife and a husband might be on the other opposite side of the earth. Their child might be on the another portion of the earth again, and they will simply share a server, in essence. Because again, everything is fake. Everything. The insect-esque aesthetic also, of course, extends to a lot of their vehicles, like their transport ships, for example, in essence being a hive-esque brood mother, where all of the smaller transport containers are extended out behind the main hive on thousands of tiny little interlinking umbilical cords that control the various containers. See if I... And we do have some more generic stuff as well to make them recognizably human, like the sniper team, for example. The sniper team, this is a sniper rifle in my universe. This is a sniper rifle. This shield is large enough for both operators to hide behind it, because the UEC was under the very simple assumption that once they wandered out into the galaxy to liberate it from oppressors, they didn't know how large the aliens might be. So they decided to make a sniper rifle that could deal with any alien they might encounter. So, in the defense of my own honor, I feel like we've got a pretty cool setting. This is one of my favorites too. Universal cockpits. So it doesn't make any sense for vehicles to have unique control schemes when you have an AI in your brain. You can interface with, in essence, everything and everything. So anything shares the same cockpit. If you can fly an aircraft, you can drive a tank. If you can drive a tank, you can operate an artillery piece. And obviously, as the UEC values human life above all others, the hive must go on, etc., they're always ejectable. They can fire themselves out of the vehicle as a little pretty escape pods. I like the universal cockpit. I think that's a pretty cool idea. Anyways, I've wandered off topic again. Lord Commissar Spartan, I know a tabletop RPG game dev who could do the hard part of the game dev process by the name of Notepad Anon. You could reach out if you want, a developer with over 100 games under his belt. Also, Curry Fund. Curry Fund. Maybe. Right now, we've already got two projects in the works, so a third one would probably be too much at the moment, but I'll keep it in mind. Shadow Fox 2300. Only reason they did it was because Password was good. If it had been a flop, they would have given a damn. Password was good? I'm confused now. And yes, chat. This is indeed intended to basically be a socialist utopia. The human civilization of the UEC is, in essence, the question of what would happen if you created a perfect socialist communist utopia, except you replace the communism with capitalism and EU-style bureaucracy. So, yeah, it's socialism that works. It's modern-day European Union-esque socialism that works. Largely, again, due to the capitalistic component and the fact that all of the people can be kept adequately complacent by luxury goods, basically. And the thing is, at any point, as the democracy is as fake as anything else, at any point, you can vote the leaders out of power. At any point, the populace of the UEC could, in theory, vote out their leaders. If you can figure out what ballot to fill in. If you can figure out which election to vote in, if you can figure out what precinct to vote in, if you can figure out when the elections are, etc. And all of the information is freely available, along with every other bit of human information ever recorded. The UEC doesn't censor, because if you do censor, all that happens is that the censored thing becomes even more popular. Instead, UEC simply buries your ass in information. You want to know about a thing? Okay, you're going to have to wade through about 5,000 hours of media articles before you get to it. Good luck. Better Fox 2300, Palworld Arch. What? I think I've missed the boat on Palworld quite some time ago, honestly. Well, it does look kind of cool. Sandu, will your setting have a faction that can take every resource type to fuel its efforts for war? Like a rogue robotic intelligence using anything to defend itself, destroy everything that isn't itself? We are actually thinking about doing an AI faction, yes. But it won't necessarily be rogue AI. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but we are thinking about doing some sort of AI faction, yes. Right, so I wanted to keep this stream a little bit shorter, and before I get too distracted, because I do need to get through the rest of the super chats as well. Closing thoughts on the whole lawsuit thing. So, we've talked about the lawsuit itself. It's obviously bad. We've talked about GW abandoning their fans, which is going to happen. We've talked about how we can't really stop that. And we talked about my plan to basically feast on the carcass. And anyone who's going to continue within 40k is A, either under contract, B, feasting on the carcass, like myself, or C, ignorant of what's going to happen to them. One out of those three can, generally speaking, summarize the majority of individuals at this point. But the final thing then is the cultural context of all of this. What's going to happen next on a grander scheme, shall we say. So, Games Workshop is in the short term going to continue to grow. I think it's going to be the next Star Wars. I genuinely believe so. I think in a decade's time, we're going to basically see like 6-7 television shows being released a year of 40k. This in turn is going to lead to fatigue. This in turn is going to lead to the populace, the people watching it, who joined not really because of what it is now, but because of what it once was, beginning to move away from it again. GW, in essence, need to either create slop that is edible enough for the normie audience that they're seeking out, yet still interesting enough to keep them enticed, or they are going to need to try to re-embrace the old school content, in which case they will chase away their modern audience, which is why I don't think they're going to do that. Imagine Uriel Ventris being created today for Amazon television show. Imagine the Demon Kulaba on Amazon TV in 2026. Yeah. So GW is going to instead water down their setting. It's going to transition into being literal hope punk. And it will see remarkable success in the short term by doing this. I don't really have any doubt about that. But it will lose its soul. And like everything else that has lost its soul, as with Rings of Power, as with Star Wars, as with Disney and Star Trek, etc., it will eventually begin to collapse. This is the seemingly inevitable cycle of entertainment these days, only to be picked up again, perhaps, at some point later on, but we're a bit too far away from speculating on that just yet. It's going to have the Marvel effect, so if you love current-day 40k, you're basically going to have to contend yourself with eventually becoming an old Hammer fan and carving out your own preferred edition with your own preferred models, as you will not like where this is going. You're not. Or alternatively, find another setting that suits you better. There are quite a lot of them out there. They're just not as large or as popular or as established. And most of them will now never become as large or popular or established unless they either already have a platform with which to market themselves, B, become a bit of a social phenomenon, the likes of Trench Crusade, for example, or C, get ridiculously lucky by hitting upon some point of culture that nobody had really seen coming, like the Common America, for example, the American superhero style mangas. And there might be a couple of companies that'll slowly claw their way up as well, but, you know, we are definitely entering into the dark ages of tabletop gaming, in my opinion. And 40k, having now risen to its zenith within the next couple of years, will then begin a very, very slow, painful decline. And we are all going to be here to see it, in all likelihood. It's not necessarily the brightest of notions, and again, the age of independent content is absolutely over, in my opinion. You're not going to be seeing it anymore, as GW is going to go more and more litigious, and you have not yet seen the extremes of litigation that GW is capable of. But yeah, that's my rather doomerish final conclusive opinion on the entire topic. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Amazon TV show is good. I hope it doesn't become Hope Punk, but I have had an uncomfortably accurate track record with these things so far, so if anything, my optimism has always been the most misplaced of my takes and theories, so do with that what you wish. Let's do the wrap-up, shall we? Last bow standing on Streamlabs. So there is a chance that your setting would allow... I read that one. Marksman, you're right about Palworld from Channel and Japanese lawyers. The lawsuit is to assert their dominance, a common hazing like practice in Japan, done by cultural giants. After all, why would the max damages being sought be 60k? A little dictator fun. Oh, absolutely. Again, this is simply a way to assert dominance and to essentially attempt to bully a smaller creator out of the marketplace. And unfortunately, our current day legal system not only allows that, but encourages it, in essence, as you can simply shop around for the legal jurisdiction that'll benefit you the most. Connor's Smug Mug. Lotta Sarin is World Eaters, so she is not on Vengeful Spirit. That was Sanguinis. Vengeful Spirit? Sanguinis? Oh, yeah. I might be confusing things. Obdulio, you've arrived at the same mindset as I have for Fallout. The new fans are feverishly slobbering up the Bethesda Fallout slop that I've given up hope it'll ever get better. Fallout as I know it is dead and not coming back. New Vegas is my mind's Fallout's finale. Yes, and that can also be seen very well in the Fallout TV show. So, the Fallout TV show was a beautiful example of what I was just talking about, right? Fallout began as a rather grimdark franchise, but with hope on the horizon. The intent of Fallout was to see the growth of civilization post the apocalypse. The entire idea of the Brotherhood of Steel, hoarding technology, seeing the various tribesmen on the cities in the wasteland, etc. It was supposed to be about recreating the world. That was the tale of Fallout, of rebuilding and of surviving, not the apocalypse itself. The apocalypse was merely the backdrop. And yet in the Fallout TV show, they nuke Shady Sands, which was exactly that. They made the TV show about the apocalypse rather than the recovery from it. And of course, in the Fallout TV show, Mr. House is on board with the apocalypse. It wasn't created by China nuking America. Instead, it was the evil capitalists, Vault Tech, starting the war. And, yeah, to put it mildly, Fallout, the TV show, which was very popular, mind you, is exactly the kind of mainstream slop that we are going to see out of Warhammer 40k. It's what 40k is going to become. Designed to appeal to as many average Joes as humanly possible, whilst being virtually unrecognizable and in fact actively insulting to the source material. And for a while, it will be lapped up until, again, the new people who have only known this will maybe either begin to rediscover the old stuff or grow sick of the slop. As in essence, the only thing Fallout has to offer once you've slopified it to this extent is the novelty of it. People tune in because it's new and yet old. It's like, oh, Fallout, I've heard of that. That's that old cool thing, right? Oh wow, okay. And it's basic bitch mellow nonsense. I'm on board. That's going to be the path of Star Wars. Oh, has been the path of Star Wars, and will be the path of 40k as well. Sad Wings Raging, Arch Warhammer Legal Fund. Maybe I shall start putting it away, putting it aside. Marge James, Google needs to be sued for their Intellia's ad asking for people to put in their phone numbers. I feel like probably suing Google is, if anything, even more ambitious, if anything. But I like the idea. I don't mind that. Tube. Trucking Joe, thoughts on CGL acquisition of Ironwind Metals? Catalyst Game Slabs. Really, I haven't heard of that, so I can't really comment, unfortunately, because I don't know about it, so sorry. Next on the first Pope of Tea, they'll delete Slanesh and Girlboss it. Chat voice. Yes, well, they've already started minimizing Slanesh, so yes, Slanesh is probably going to be one of the first major entities to basically be yeeted out of the setting, or they'll be turned trans. I shit ye not. That would be the alternative for Slanesh. Basically saying that Slanesh is the god of all sex, all hedonism in essence, and that means that she's gender fluid or something. Read that one. Laylee Dragnell. So channels and podcasts that focus on lore are fine. What about channels that make or have made tabletop or Wrath and Glory content? If I was to make an educated guess, I think that the first thing that GW will eventually go after will be first lore and then tabletop stuff. Because the lore, you might speculate a bit too much. You might talk about the grim, dark backstory of 40k. You might be bringing up a little bit too many things that GW no longer wants you to talk about, shall we say. And tabletop will be the last. And even GW can't be that crazy, but then I simply fall afoul of my previous statement. If you don't think GW is that crazy, you simply haven't given them enough time yet. So, yeah. Zoloxon Doppelganger. Nothing will replace the sci-fi fantasy grit of 40k. No, probably not. The active grim dark of it will probably not be replaced for a very long time, if indeed ever. Ian Jarrett, the art style for what did that say? UEC made me think of Battalion Wars Western Frontier. A little bit, yeah. Now, in part, that is a little bit of the art style as well, probably, as we've got Kevco working on this, who is an excellent, excellent artist, and who has made most of our UEC stuff, whereas our Ashari stuff as well. So this is Kevco again, in the Asari Siege Tower, which is a beautiful, beautiful little entity. Art styles, many art styles. Also, we have punch knife pistols, which is probably my favorite weapon so far, because I've always liked the idea of punching someone with a sword. And the only pickup thing better than punching someone with a sword is punching someone with a sword that is also a pistol, at least in my opinion. Look, your product. If your setting is a success, will you consider expanding it into other mediums like video games and books? Yes, we've already got plans to digitalize it. We're only doing a tabletop thing to begin with because it's easier than making a game, basically. Calzine 101, you can thank Disney for FL's awful copyright, Florida's awful copyright laws. Of course it's Disney. I should have known. I should have known. Mercenary X21, text-to-speech was the only thing getting me into Warhammer when it left for World of Darkness. Screw GW. I hope they collapse. I'm glad I didn't spend a penny on them. Dark Resurrect becomes a member. Thank you very much and welcome, sir. Mercenary X21, and I want the Skaven 2 from Fantasy Sigmar to invade 40k and outright end everything and end GW for good. That would be funny, but unlikely. Alex Adamson, I've seen ads with 100% Palworld assets. Alien. Yeah. Plagiarism is such a dirty word in these days. NJ Gamer Arch, why not call them Shit-tendo? Because I didn't know about that. But I'll forget about it and just call them Nintendo again. Valamio, potatoes go for 2.5 to 5 PLN. Have 2 to 4 kilograms for curry. Thank you. I now have more potatoes for my curry. Do you put potatoes in curry? I don't rightly know. Ian Jarrett, what you've described so far, the UAC, it kind of makes me think, like, what if the robots and humans from the Matrix work together to become one faction? A little bit. See, the base idea of the companion AI is basically that the AI is going to happen regardless. And the thing that determines whether or not an AI is good is, in essence, the training model that you use it for, right? If you train an AI of specific political ideology, for example, obviously the AI will adopt that political ideology. If you train it off nonsense, it'll produce nonsense, etc., etc. Which is why the companion AI is not trained of anything but you. The AI is trained off you, your experiences, your intelligence, what you gather from the world. And it, of course, once installed, already basically has all human knowledge worked within it. And then it uses you as training data to figure out how to best make you successful in society at large. It figures out what you want to do for work. It figures out what you like to do for hobbies. It figures out what kind of people you like. The AI is genuinely your friend. It's not some sort of dystopian control device planted into you by the government or anything. It literally wants you to succeed and will do everything in its considerable power to make you succeed. But that also occasionally means that it might need to manipulate you a little bit, occasionally. If it decides that something is best for you, but you're not quite aware of it yet, it'll find some way to get you to do it, even if you don't necessarily like it. Kevithar 1138. The big question, Art, will there be titans for all or some factions? No pun intended. Titans, eh? Honestly, probably not. Simply because titans would in essence be worthless as weapons in actual reality. There is a lot of air power in this setting. If anything, our titans are more like bombers and strategic weaponry like that. There is a UEC bomber, for example, which was nicknamed by the GAR the Shadow of the End. It is a stratospheric bomber. It carries enough tungsten arrows that it drops out from a near atmospheric altitude to basically carpet bomb a city into utter ruin obliteration. It is what the UEC use when they need the destructive force of a thermonuclear device, but they're not willing to put up with the fallout. So that, if anything, would be our titans. Zenoxon Doppelganger, your setting needs more demons. We will have some, although probably not demons, but we are definitely thinking about doing some sort of very, very evil entity. Boog, Universal Cockpit sounds like Takara's Diaclone. I don't know what that is. Torn, hey Arch, I've been watching since the Melee in 40k days. That is a while ago. Thank you, sir. Don't Space Marines grow a secondary gene seed that can eventually be harvested when it matures and allows for the slower replenishment of it? They do indeed. They have the main gene seed, and then there's the... I was about to say pituitary gland, but I don't think that's right. Secondary gene seed that can also be harvested. I don't remember how many years, but it takes quite a while for it to mature. And that, along with the main gene seed, which can also be harvested, means that from one Space Marine, you can technically get 2 gene seeds, but that's not a whole lot, and it takes like decades to do. And obviously, there's always the danger of gene seeds being destroyed, of the corpse being destroyed, of the main gene seed being destroyed, the secondary gene seed, or corpses simply not being recovered. So even in the entirety of the Imperium, there's a very, very limited store of gene seed. Very, very limited. It is the single most valuable resource in the entire Imperium. MJ Bull 515. I thought this setting was supposed to be a fiction. Well, the best fictions are based on reality. What can I say? Another thing too, like the Ashari. This right here, this beautiful, beautiful view of an Ashari world. This is a slaver civilization. The Ashari are of the opinion that they are innately superior to all other living beings, and that all other living intelligent creatures should be enslaved and used as labor to the best of their abilities within the Ashari Empire. The Ashari view this as their burden to bear, literally, the Rudyard Kipling of things. And this is a slave civilization where all slaves are put to tasks that best benefit them. And the Ashari are not necessarily tyrannical. They don't abuse their slaves or anything like that. In fact, they treat them fairly well, but they don't have any freedoms. The UEC didn't like this at all. The UEC has determined that all men should be free, even if those men are happier in servitude. And so this is the beautiful city of a prominent Ashari noble. After the UEC went to war with the Ashari, this is what the city looked like. I'll leave it to you to determine whether the plight of the enslaved was bettered or worsened by the UEC coming to liberate them. You are liberated, brother. But I was happy. Well, too fucking bad. Tajard, you should search for Soviet communist terms Zotzozarevnovia and Shtutupovigna. Sounds like your world communist UAC. Play Foxhole and Curry. Baz, how will you do the models and who will do the box art? Models will be... We're probably going to be working on some element of 3D printing. And also printed, like, actually, like, made models, that we will sell the models themselves. But we are looking into having STLs that we can distribute as well. Marked Ashamed, how much money is needed to buy GW and take them private? Billions at this point, I fear? There are at least hundreds of millions. Sandoom, Fallout show irks me lore-wise immensely. I know your pain, sir. RobLake623, got to go see the lady. Thought experiment, how much to fund you to come to my wedding this September in Kansas? We have good barbecue, Arch. Take care. First class tickets, hotels, all of the luxuries. Sounds expensive. Sounds very expensive. Joshua Sullivan, how many centuries into the future will your sci-fi setting be set? I've got an ideological faction idea that amuses me but requires some time in the oven to bake. Probably not incredibly far. Probably... what, 10,000 years maybe? Not like ridiculously far at all, because we do want to keep it sort of close to, you know, the current day. sort of, kind of. Curtis Thompson asks the important question: does your setting have cat girls? Theoretically, yes. Theoretically, yes. Listen, the companion AI in your brain can dream up anything you want whatsoever. And it can simulate it as well. Once you go into your private house at the end of the day, your personal pod in one of the enormous UEC towers, the pod can recreate any reality whatsoever you desire, as the entire UEC society is built on holographic technology, AI feedback, drones, automation, etc. So, if you want a cat girl, the companion AI will simply go, okay, and make itself look like a cat girl. Or it will dream up any number of cat girls for you. You can touch them, you can pet them, you can do questionable things to them if you so choose. You can get them pregnant. Literally. In that case, it will simply just deposit the genetic material, and that will be used to create a child via a sperm donation program. Which should horrify you, incidentally. The fact that families can be created in the UEC with no actual love attached, no familial closeness, no connection whatsoever. You'll probably never even see the child, even if you decide to quote-unquote raise them. The entirety of the UEC is basically intended to make you go, oh, that sounds awesome, but hold on a second. That's actually really fucking creepy. So yeah, the question basically becomes, there is a box. Inside of the box is everything you have ever desired, but all of it will be fake. Do you want to live inside of the box? Yes, no. That's what the UEC boils down to. And Ian Jarrett, for some inspiration, might I suggest Supreme Commander? The UEF and Seraphim come to mind. I have played Supreme Commander. It is a very, very cool game. And I am looking forward... there's a couple of spiritual successors to Supreme Commander. What the fuck was the name of... what the hell? So one of them is called Bar. I know that. Is it this one? Is it this one? Yes, this one. Okay, so this one is the one that I'm looking forward the most to. Sanctuary Shattered Suns. Because it's got some gameplay now. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this stuff. This looks like Supreme Commander, doesn't it? This looks like it just is Supreme Commander. The way the projectiles move, the way the artillery moves, the camera, the units, the unit icons. This is Supreme Commander, but bigger, better, runs better, and is being developed right now. I am very excited for this. I am very, very excited for this. I think this is going to be an unbelievably awesome game. The other one is BAR, which stands for Beyond All Reason, I'm pretty sure, which I really do need to play that at some point. God, I can't even find it. It just gives me bar, as in alcohol. There we go. And this is the other one, Beyond All Reason. It is already out at the moment, I believe, in kind of an early access state. And it, too, is very, very much so Supreme Commander inspired. So if you like Supreme Commander, you've got one option, which is BAR, available right now. And you've got Sanctuary Shattered Sun as well. So after a very long drought indeed, it may be that our fandom will feast yet again. I hope. I really do hope so. God, because I do miss Supreme Commander. That was some good shit. That was some really good shit. Some really, really excellent shit. Elsie Sorana, do you want to live in the box? Arch, that's just a modern marriage. A better modern marriage, because your AI companion will never have a headache. He'll never be angry at you either, and can be any gender you so desire. And flip. Warturkfire, so the UEC live in the pods and are the bugs. Yes. Yes, that is pretty much it. They live in the pods and they are the bugs. Will they be eaten too? Marksman 117 from a brainstorm I did with a friend. Humans are extinct, but AI continues their legacy as a race of semi-religious machines that crusade through the galaxy to avenge their fallen creators and build monuments to their legacy. That does sound fun. And demons. Do you mean like Subverse level demons? Naughty? Serious question. Humanity stands on Xenos. Breedable, good, non-breedable means extinction. I think it serves as a good gauge for picking Xeno allies. Best way to assimilate. Little dictator. UAC society is very welcoming of Xenos. In fact, they damn near like Xenos better than they like other humans, and will be manipulated into doing things by aliens because they'll simply assume that foreign means good. Krieg, Star Wars EU is getting popular again. Good writing. Well, I mean, there's going to be some of it, I'm sure. And NJ Gamer, too fucking bad with the smile on my face. Too bad indeed. Half of that premise is Noir Automata? Near, I'm assuming. Yes, I think that was like the old humans are dead and just the robots live on or something. I still need to play that game too. I've been told it's good, and I believe the people who've told me it's good. I've just never gotten around to actually playing it, but some point, I'm sure. So the UEC are the Tau, but less blue? Oh, no. See, the UEC don't think they have a right to conquer the galaxy or anything like that. They don't have a greater good. They simply want to coexist with all the other species. So long as all of the other species follow their ideas, that is. Not ideologically, not to conquer them, not to dominate them. They just need to not be morally ill and morally evil, which is why they wage a genocidal war on the Ashari, because they view the Ashari to be morally unjust. In the same way that the Ashari absolutely fucking hate the UEC. But again, I was planning to keep this short, and we're coming up on 2 hours now, so probably wrap it up there. Anyways, that is my general thoughts on the GLW lawsuit. The lawsuit itself is obviously nonsense. Parts of it is justifiable, but overall it's not a good thing by any stretch of the imagination. It is a general ill, and is going to lead to further ills over the time, inevitably so. Until eventually, 40K will begin its long collapse, as anyone who is making fan content for them need to prepare themselves for the end, in essence. And that's a sad thing, and it's an unavoidable thing, so better just get on board with it and make the best out of it. Mario Trujillo has been around for 12 months. At this point, we need to just make our own setting, correct, and keep them privately owned. The corpos cannot be trusted, and it's going to be a lot of hard work. Couldn't agree with you more on that, sir. Right. With that, thank you all very much for watching, chat. Thank you for your generous donations, as always, and it does indeed look like the multi-stream thing worked, so we'll do a little bit more of that when I have something relevant to talk about or stream. I was planning on playing Dawn of War, the Rights of War games in the not-too-distant future, so you might multi-stream that. Once the Dawn of War remaster comes out, that will obviously need to be played, because that is going to be absolutely awesome, I think. So, until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see all of you again soon.